of today's discussion is going to be around enabling trust in your measurement systems. The objectives are to identify what I'm referring to as the 3 keys in trusting your measurement system, identify techniques to apply these, and then gain at least one applicable and usable concept or technique. We all go to sessions like this to gain additional techniques and approaches that we want to bring back to our daily life and our daily jobs. My goal is to hopefully provide you with one that's directly applicable to you. In fact, we'll start off with what I feel is probably the most critical of these, and I'll bring that about in somewhat of a subtle way. So going on to the next slide here. There we go. As I said, somewhat subtle. The most critical factor in enabling trust in the measures is use of the measures. So maybe not so subtle, but that is definitely the most critical factor. The more you use your measurement systems, the more you understand them. And what I see in many organizations is there is a tendency to collect a lot of measures, and I'm asked to collect, for example, my time on a daily basis. If I don't understand why that's used or why I'm collecting that, and if I don't see that being used, I'm less apt to collect that in a way that is reliable. I might enter hours, but do I care whether it's 4 or 8 hours? Probably not, right? So that's one very critical concept that we'll come back to quite a bit, is the use of all the measures that you're collecting. Use them in a way that people see visibly throughout the organization. Also, one of the upfront issues that I want to deal with are the references that I'm going to make throughout the presentation. So there's several sources of guidance for measurement information. The current sources for the guidance are ISO 15939, the CMMI Measurement and Analysis Process Area, and PSM, or Practical System and Software Measurement. Each of these are critical. In this presentation, I'm not going to regurgitate the information in these. I'm going to go beyond these a little bit and talk about some of the aspects that are critical in measurement systems that aren't brought forward in each of these as much as it could be. So with that, let's go into talking about those 3 keys that I talked about earlier. So those 3 keys I talked about are traceability, visibility, and reliability. Each of these are critical. Traceability helps ensure that each of the measures is traceable to what you need in the organization, and not only to those information needs, but those things that people need to do their job for each role. And we'll talk about how critical that is to be role-based as well. Visibility ensures that those people that need that information actually have it. Having the information to the people that need to make the decisions at the right time in the right form so that they can make those decisions. And then reliability. If you read that what's on the screen there about reliability, it says helps ensure that there is appropriate level of trust. The word appropriate there is critical because we can expend a lot of resources trying to get our measures as error-free as possible, as accurate and precise as possible. We'll talk about what that means later on. But that we need to ensure that there's an adequate return from that, the resources we expend. And we want the level of reliability to be appropriate for the decisions we need to make. We also need to ensure that we have the appropriate level of traceability and visibility as well. So that's true of all 3 of these keys. So let's dig a little bit deeper and talk about the traceability first. So traceability really involves clearly defining the alignment of those information needs all the way down to the attributes that we want to measure. What you see on the right-hand side there is a depiction of a measurement construct, and we'll talk about that later, but you can see those in ISO 15939 and PSM, and we're not going to get into those too much, but the very top of that is the information needs, and that's the most critical aspect to trace to. Defining those information needs very clearly and precisely enables us to understand what are the measures that we need to collect and what are the visibility mechanisms that we need into those measures. So in defining the information needs clearly, how do we define those? The information needs are really nothing more than requirements for our measurement systems. And usually that's done through requirements gathering sessions in which we sit down with those critical roles in the organization and understand what are their requirements from our measurement systems. A common way of defining those are through that format that you see on the slide. As a blank, I need blank to do or so that I can have blank. So for example, as a project manager, I need earned value data so that I can maintain the cost and schedule integrity of my project. It's critical to not only define what is needed, but also why it's needed, the to-do or so that part of this phrase. That's critical because, as I mentioned before, if you're collecting the measures, it's important to understand why you're collecting them. And that to-do or so that part of that requirement is critical to understanding what level of reliability you need in the measure as well. So there's a question there, and I'm not sure if we can ask questions live in this or not, but I'll just ask it as a more rhetorical question. How many people really have requirements in this format defined for their measurement systems? I find in many organizations that I work with, they don't. They've defined information needs at a high level and only defined simply the information that's needed, not the why, and haven't defined them as the requirements for their measurement system. The closer you get to defining your measurement system requirements as true requirements, and the closer you get to having them traced as true requirements, having traceability matrices built, the more you're able to ensure the reliability and trust of those measurement systems because you understand why you need that information. That's, again, going back to the use. It's a critical aspect of understanding the why. I mentioned the measurement construct when I first started talking about traceability, and the measurement construct is the requirements traceability tree, if you will, for measurement systems. It traces the business objective and information need to the indicator and to the attributes that you want to measure within the organization. Examples of those can be found in ISO 15939 and PSM. Some of the critical aspects of that traceability involve having very rigorously defined operational definitions for the measures and defining consensus standards. What do I mean by consensus standard? Consensus standard is an agreed upon standard for whatever level you're going to combine or aggregate the measures at. So for example, if you're going to combine effort measures across your organization, it's critical that you have the same consensus standard for not only what you mean by effort, but also